Welcome to Spider Cave Studios. We have the step challenge here at on location at Central Perk. I had this idea this morning and I wanted to get to it right away instead of waiting till I was out on a walk. And I thought, how do you hack the 10,000 hour rule? And is it really a rule, right? These mythologies perk up and we repeat them often enough, and then, as Goebbels says, you tell a lie enough, and eventually it becomes the truth. And so, is it really the truth? And the presupposition to it is that you got to be great at everything, right? So it makes us more stressed out because we got to be great at everything. I'm great at making spilling coffee on myself, actually, just now. Uh, um, we're great, right? Got to be great at everything, and I got to have 5% body fat, and I've got to, you know, have a full-on keto experience, and then next week's flavor of the day would be something else, right? Carbs are good, carbs are bad. There actually was a book. Cher was on this diet. I read the book back in right after I got out of college, I think, and it was a new way of eating that was more carbohydrate centric. So we go all over the place. Remember when eggs were evil? I only say this stuff to such that we put a question mark over the mythologies that somehow creep into our conscious collective conscious. But the 10,000 hour rule is the theory that if you practice something for 10,000 hours you can become a master of it. It was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in the 2008 book Outliers. He based the rule on research that suggests practice is the essence of genius. He estimates that the Beatles put in 10,000 hours of practice playing in Hamburg in the early 60s, and that Bill Gates put in 10,000 hours of programming work before founding Microsoft. Now, I've got issue with that, right? Average practice equals average greatness. So, did the Beatles pick up their guitar to be the Beatles, or did they pick up the guitar just to have fun? And out of that, they got better and better, and then sort of had a lift. Bill Gates. Did he start off saying, "I'm going to own the world"? No, he just liked to program. He liked to hack. He liked to do things, and he was able to get DOS, understood the deal, and so the programming didn't make him a better programmer necessarily, but made him understand how to recognize a great opportunity when DOS came along, because he didn't create DOS. A lot of people don't know that unless you're a history buff. So, so if I think, of course, in terms of myself, right? We all do. So think in terms of your life, but where have you spent a lot of time on? When I first got into SEO, and now I would consider myself a master SEO, uh, that how did I get into it? I literally just started doing it. Well, how do you just start doing it? I started figuring out how it works, right? So so I'm an ex-athlete, right? So I played ball. I figured out how to, if I'm going against a bigger guy, I've got to do something. I got to do something different, right? And literally, I was really good because I used my leverage. I was usually shorter than the guy I was going against. But I remember one team against Utah State, I struggled because they were all shorter than me, believe it or not. Everybody I went against was shorter than me by about an inch, with about 70 more pounds than me. And we were playing in mud this thick. All my super sauce, my superpowers were gone. What do you do? I still don't know what I should have done. Uh, it was ridiculous. So how would I teach a kid? Let's say I have him for 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. That is a, what is that? That is, I think 1460, 1460 days, 365 days. Let's say I got the kid every single day of the year, right? Which you don't. But let's just say I'm going to make him a master football player. I've got to spend 10,000 hours of practice over a 4-year period every single day. That's roughly 6.9 hours a day I'm spending with him practicing. It's impossible. So under Malcolm Gladwell's theory, you can't be a master after 4 years. Well, let me ask you this. Did the Beatles spend 7 hours a day practicing? Did Bill Gates spend 7 hours a day programming? I don't know. So it kind of doesn't quite make it. So there's two things I've got an issue with. One is, do you need to be great at everything? Sometimes good enough is good enough, right? As they say, perfect is the enemy of great, or great is the enemy of good enough, something like that. And it's true. You don't need to be great at everything. I don't need to be great at putting my hat on my head. I think I've got it, and perhaps there's better ways to do it where it shows more style or whatever. But I don't think it'll take 10,000 hours to figure. But let's just assume 10,000 hours is what's necessary. And what I would say, naturally, that a lot of these guys like Gates, like the Beatles, do naturally, and that is visualize. That is use their imagination to create that which is in reality, a shorter amount of time. How long is a practice for the Beatles? A couple hours at the most, maybe. So there's another mythology. It's often cited, and I don't know where the research ever came from. It's often repeated, definitely by me, and that is that they took a basketball team or a bunch of basketball players, and they were going to test them for their free throw ability. So they took the normal kids and they measured them, how many they could do at the beginning of the study, and they didn't change anything. They didn't practice more, nothing. And another set of kids, they practiced, let's just say, an hour a day or something like that, and of extra free throw line work. So they got measured, and then another group didn't practice more. They just continued doing whatever they did in life and on the basketball court. But they went home and they visualized perfect shots every day for an hour. The team that visualized outdid the team that practiced, which outdid the team that didn't practice. So the idea is visualization is powerful. I know this to be true in my own life. In fact, I just recently saw Jason Bonham, the son of John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. He has a band called the Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin Experience. Saw it at the Greek. It's phenomenal. And it was a cousin thing. We all went, and No Quarter came up. I don't know if you know Zeppelin or not, but No Quarter came up, and it's very trancy and very powerful drums and right. Anyway, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And back in the day, that took up the entire record side of their live album. It was a four-side album, if you recall the old days, and it took up the whole side, that song. And so I whispered in my cousin's ear, I go, dude, takes up the whole album side, and because that's what kids would talk about. And I would come home. Wednesdays we had practice at night. And so right after school, I'd jet home, get some food in me, and then lay down, put on No Quarter, which was, like I said, it's trancy. And I would go through all of our plays. We had very, very good scouting reports in high school. And I'd go through visualizing each play and the guy I was going against, right? Because we'd watch film also. And so I'd visualize that out. And that, I believe, in the end, helped me tremendously. And so how can you do that? What if you, and you got to play. The only way the imagination is going to happen is when we get out of our serious adult world. Why I have these silly backgrounds quite often is because we need to not be so damn serious in order to be creative. And your superpower is your creativity. So what I want you to do is ask yourself, what if you were to ask your brain, hey mind, can you go through my life and come up with a highlight reel? I want 100 clips of my highlights, not football highlights. I'm saying life highlights, stuff that makes me feel good, and run it on a loop. And then the next day say, hey, brain, that was cool. Can you also go through the memories of my life and find some more highlights? If we wouldn't necessarily think of them as highlights, what if we were to turn them into highlights? What can you change to make it into a highlight? Run that on endless loop, please. Do you think we'd get our 6.9 hours a day? How many hours do you sleep? What if you were to do this in your downtime? What if you were to ask yourself this before you sleep? What if you ask yourself this in the morning? Just that alone, and it's a shortcut form of what they call timeline theory, timeline therapy. And you go back in time and create a reframe of the meaning of what you took from a memory, and then create a story, right? Our memories are basically remembered through labels. We label that, right? And we usually create these labels that aren't good enough. They're not we deserve better labels than the labels we put on our memories. You deserve better labels. So what if those labels what if you go, oh man, I can't visualize it. Gosh, what if you could? What if you can go back in time and change that idea, that label, that belief that you're not good at visualization or memorization? Because you really are. The part that says you're not is full of shit, because we don't forget anything. All we do is relabel it. Every time you bring a memory up, it's put through a filter of whatever state you're in right now. So if you're in a horrible, sad state and you remember something that was horrible and sad, because we like to do that, this always happens to me, then it's going to get worse than it actually was. And then the reality of it is, it's not really good or bad, as Shakespeare said. It's what thinking makes it so. So think what, even in adversity. I mean, life. I had a doctor one time say, "Life's dangerous, Tim. Get over it, man. It's dangerous." And at the end of the day, it doesn't end well, right? So let's paint happier pictures through our highlight film, through, I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. What if you were just, I know you got to just practice it once or twice or three times or 10 times. And with feeling, that's even better because it's easy to remember and attach it to a happy feeling, a good feeling. So you remember it through the lens of happiness, and now it's a happy memory. So I don't want to go too far down in the weeds, but I'm just getting back to this is how you hack the 10,000 hour rule. You spend your 10,000 hours in uptime, right? And if something, so you end up finding, things that happen that maybe aren't so happy, right? They're not so good, and you have a bad thought. Well, just flip it. Okay, God, I don't want him to get into an accident. What would happen if he came home just perfect health and in fact won the lottery? If we're going to be, have batshit crazy ideas, let's have good batshit crazy ideas. Just Coach Tim out. Enjoy.